Hello, new YouTube member. Guess what? You've just unlocked bonus content that no one else has seen before, and you get exclusive access to some neat features. If you join the Experiencers Anonymous tier, you've unlocked loyalty badges which will appear next to your name when you join us live during any of our videos. The longer you stay with us, the cooler the badge will be. Also, you get to use these cool custom emojis that we made just for you. You also get to access our private Discord chat where we can communicate all the time privately. All you have to do is email us at admin@tessacan.org. Let us know you want in on the discussion and we will send you the link directly to Discord. This tier also unlocks early access to new videos, behind the scenes and blooper footage, as well as some exclusive videos made just for members. All that for $2.99 Canadian a month. If you join the unclassified tier for $4.99 Canadian, you would get everything I just said, plus extended footage of some of our featured videos, a discount to our merch store, and so much more. If you are a member of the unclassified tier, email us at admin@tessacan.org and let us know, and we will send you a discount code for the Paranormal Hangar. All proceeds go back into the mission and help us create educational content for you and the rest of the world. Thank you for being a part of that journey. There are lots of perks, so make sure you check that out. Also, you can use this tab to share and communicate with Tessa. That's it. Unless you have a better idea. If you do, email us at admin@tessacan.org if you have any requests for videos or bonus perks or anything at all. Really, you are in charge. Don't be afraid to reach out. Thanks for your support, and if you know anyone else who may benefit, please share our channel. The more people we have, the more we can help. And thanks for watching. Keep your eyes in the sky. Say it with me. Say it, Tim.
Heed the world.
Heed the world.
This is Lady Anne, owner of KPNL Radio and hostess of the Caravan Library of Lore, and I support Tessa. As an experiencer myself, I have filed my own reports with them, and the professionalism and heart they have shown my case goes above and beyond. If you have had an experience, I cannot recommend Tessa enough.
Hi, this is Ernie Hudson, Winston's and more from Ghostbusters. I want to let you know that Ryan Stacy, he's created the Experiencer Support Association, TESA. You can check them out at www.tesacan.org. Now, they investigate paranormal, UFO, and provide support to experiencers. But you can check them out at, like I said, www.tesacan.org and see for yourself if they're really Ghostbusters. I can tell you this, they are a non-profit organization. Good luck, have fun, and keep it blessed.
Good evening. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencers Support Association. Tessa is a UFO, paranormal, and paracryptid investigation association. We investigate everything belonging to the global phenomenon linked to highly strange and unexplained experiences. We also connect experiencers with other experiencers, creating a safe, positive environment to engage and discuss this phenomenon without judgment, criticism, or retribution. From the land of the white rolling sands, on the southeasterly tip of Georgian Bay, to all of you listening around the world, as we simulcast live on KPNL Radio, we salute you. If you want to go back and listen to our previous episodes, go to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to be instantly notified when we are live, not only for these episodes, but every single element Tessa has to offer. On our website, tessacan.org, we have something for everyone. We have support for experiencers, data for independent researchers, and places to advertise for professional partners. Hello, everybody. Today is Thursday, July 15th, 2021, and I, Ryan Stacey, am your host this evening. Remember to super chat. Just click the $sign next to your name in the comment box to donate any amount you wish if you decide to participate in the association. Ask your questions live, and if you're catching this on the replay, please consider becoming a member and unlock bonus content, including behind the scenes, bloopers, extended footage on all our new project developments. So our guest for season 3, episode 23 is Reverend Peter Panagore. Reverend Peter Panagore went ice climbing with his partner on the world famous Lower Weeping Wall along the Ice Fields Parkway in Alberta, Canada. On their descent, they became trapped on the side of the mountain. As the sun set, he was overcome by exhaustion and hypothermia. He died on the side of the mountain. In those minutes, on the other side, he experienced hell, forgiveness, unconditional love, and according to him, heaven was beautiful. Panagore was recruited to TV as the 5th minister of America's oldest religious broadcast. His 2-minute spot aired for 15 years, just before the morning weather of NewsCenterMaine on 2 NBC stations, reaching 80,000 viewers a day. Previously, Peter served in New England as the United Church of Christ minister. His Audible Best Seller, Heaven is Beautiful, has been optioned for a film. His first book, 2 Minutes for God, is a non-denominal devotion drawn from his 1700 TV stories. He is working on his 3rd book, built around his talk, and provides mentoring to spiritual seekers worldwide with the working title Modern Mysticism and You. You can find Peter at www.peterpanagore.love, which has a link to all of his social media. So, without further ado, Peter, put on your tinfoil hat. How are you doing this evening?
Hi, Ryan. How are you doing? I'm great. Thanks for having me here. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Peace.
Peace. Right on. So I just want a quick shout out to Christopher Lee. I noticed you are our newest YouTube member. Thank you so much for becoming a member. Good to see you. Hello, everybody. So, Peter, the best thing to start this is, I guess, what happened when you died? Like, where do we?
Well, let me give you a little background. I was ice climbing, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I froze to death, and I was on the mountain for 24 hours, a little under 24 hours, and it was a day climb, so I should have been off in 8 hours. But it was a terrifying night, and I'll tell you the story a little bit, the build up to it, and I can't convey the fear I was having while I was knowing that I was going to die, because before we even finished the climb, it was pretty obvious to my partner, Tim, my climbing partner, and I, that we were in serious trouble, even before we got to the top. And by the time we got to the top, the sun set, the temperature dropped about 30 degrees instantaneously. We weren't clothed for it. We didn't have gear to spend the night. We didn't have any more food. We didn't have any more water. We were 600 feet up on a sheer ice cliff straight down. And we immediately started violently shivering. Like every muscle in my body was contorting and tensing and releasing, and my jaw was clattering, and I was shaking all over, and that just kind of set the fear pretty deep. But one of the great things about climbing with Tim, and had spent 8 days snow caving with him, and we didn't know each other when this trip started. We got to know each other during this trip. Why we ended up together was spring break. and we were looking for something, an adventure to do. And we were both outdoor adventurers. Neither of us were novices. I'd been backpacking most of my life, and in the high country for a lot of my life, and in the winter camping a lot. National Ski Patrol. Tim had a leader. He was a lead climber certified, with a lot of hours in the backcountry. So we were not neophytes, but we made a huge mistake. I made a huge mistake, and Tim agreed with my mistake. You're supposed to climb with 2 axes. I climbed with an axe and a hammer. A hammer is much, much shorter, and you can't, with an axe, you can rest. You can put your hand through the strap and put the ice axe in and rest. But with a hammer, you can't, you have to grip it. And so by having to grip this thing and use my forearm muscles without relaxation, I burned out. Mm-hmm. So we get to the top of the cliff. That's why we were there at such a late hour. We spent the next 10 or 12 hours trying to get down the mountain in the dark, knowing that we believed, we had good reason to believe we were going to die. And we were going to die getting off the mountain or die where we were. So we fought our way I'll get to the point here with what happened when I died. So last rappel, sometime before sunup, 150 feet up, a long night of trial and tribulations, advancing hypothermia, frozen frostbite all over all of my digits, my toes, still can't feel my big toe. And our cognitive abilities went into decline as the night progressed. So by the time we get to the final rappel, 150 feet up, we were harnessed into the mountain. It's the first time we were safe all night. Iron pins and iron rings with carabiners and 2 straps with a carabiner. And Tim was clipped to my left on his harness. I was clipped to his right. I had the rope. The moon had risen. We could see for the most part. There was not so much in color, but we could see pretty well. And I took off my gloves. My hands were frozen. My feet are like blocks of ice. I should set the scene. My feet are like the ice blocks that you get at the convenience store. And that's no joke. My feet were frozen solid. I couldn't move them. My hands were almost unbendable. I couldn't move my lips. I couldn't speak hardly because my lips were so frozen. My jaw was frozen. And so we get to this position, and it's the last rappel. Our tent is 160 feet down, 150 feet down. I tie one end of the line to my harness. I take the other end of the line and I toss it out to the side so that it goes around this curve, this corner of the mountain where we are, so that I can then pull the rope down through the other iron pin and ring way at the top, and it jams on the first pull. Boom. I can't move this thing. And the rope kind of wrapped around a wall. And so I couldn't free it. I couldn't, shake it loose. I couldn't climb back up the rope. I couldn't go up and around the corner because I would fall. And this is like the last straw for us, because now we know, unless we get the rope free, we are going to die right here. And I tried for hours trying to pull the rope free, and I couldn't get it free. And hypothermia continued to advance, which means that at first I got warm. My body temperature what felt like to me was that all of my blood rushed to my core. And I remember thinking to myself, I was on the National Ski Patrol. I should tell you why I know this. I was a first responder, wilderness first responder on the National Ski Patrol, working at Bridger Bowl in Bozeman, Montana. As a college student, volunteer. And so I was following along in my own mind the progression of the hypothermia. And I get to the place where I got hot, and I knew that I wasn't supposed to unzip my coat, but I unzipped my coat anyway because I was sweating. And Tim yelled at me, "Zip up your coat." I was like, "I don't really care." And I remember thinking, I don't really need my fingers. All I really need is my heart and my lungs to live, and my brain. And so I felt like all the blood was rushing into my core. And in my mental state, I was willing to lose my arm, which is crazy, but that's where I was. Mm-hmm. And as I stood there, I began to then fall asleep, and I would wake up. After I would collapse, I'd wake up. I'd collapse. I'd wake up. And each time I fell asleep, I'd lose consciousness. I'd black out. And then I'd wake up again. I'd pull on the rope. And so I stood up this last time. And as I stood up, I had all my peripheral vision was surrounded by a black ring, something I'd never seen before. And this black ring, tunnel vision, began to collapse rapidly to blackout. And I remember looking around thinking, what is this thing? I don't understand what's going on. And it went just out. And I thought, I should be unconscious. Why am I still conscious? Because every time I'd fallen asleep, I was unconscious. Now I'm conscious and I don't have any pain. And so I don't understand what's going on. And my vision suddenly, where the mountain was in front of me, becomes this expanse of darkness, this very large, infinite-sized void of darkness. But it's not the kind of darkness you can't really see in, because far, far, far in the furthest away, I could have depth perception in this darkness, and it goes incredibly deep. And way far away, there's like this little pinprick of light, and this pinprick of light, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on, where I am and who I am now, because something has changed. And this pinprick of light comes rushing toward me across this incredible expanse at faster than the speed of light. It came the distance was so far, and it came so fast. And as it came to me, it enlarged, kind of filling all of my vision. And it communicated to me directly inside me, telepathically, without language, and said to me, "I'm taking you." And I was, no, I don't know what is going on. And I said no, and I put up all of my strength and willpower to prevent this thing from taking me, because I could tell that it was going to do this. It came rushing right toward me, right up into my face, if I had a face. And it reached inside me and took me right outside of myself, just pulled me right out. Like I had no way of stopping it. And as soon as it took me right outside of myself, it enveloped me. And it was like, people talk about, like, I call it an angel. All right. But I don't know that that's just a word. It was intelligence. It was compassion. It was beauty. It was power. That was one of the overpowering. It overpowered me. And I was like a rag doll in a stream. I just was ripped right out. And now I'm inside of this entity, and it's rushing away and out, sort of in like a tunnel, but I can still see the dark expanse all around me, but I'm traveling directly towards something, and I'm inside, and I'm relaxed, and I'm comfortable, and I know that I can't do anything to stop this. I just go for the ride. And the next thing I know, I travel this incredible distance, and I pop out into another infinite darkness. Only this one is bigger. This darkness is somehow quantitatively not only larger, but more, I don't know what the word is. I don't want to say dense, because there's no molecules there, but it's somehow more real than the space that I had just traveled through. And so now I'm in this infinite darkness that's illuminated, and I can see in every direction at once, like I had 10,000 eyes, and I was no longer my body whatsoever. I could see what I describe, everything I use here is metaphor. None of it's accurate, and I'm in a place of paradox. Just to tell you that to begin with. So I can see myself as an energy consciousness. I describe it as a humongous orb of consciousness. I was my thinking and my understanding and my knowledge and my sensory perceptions were all one thing. There was no separation. I had no brain in the way of my thinking. I could think faster and more clearly than I had ever been able to think before. And I was comfortable. That was the first experience. It was that, this is me. I'm home. This is who I am. And when I say I'm home, I don't mean like I knew I was in heaven, because I had no idea where I was. I just knew that I was this thing. This was what I was. And that whatever I had been before was never me. And now I'm this orb of consciousness, and I can see in every direction. And as I'm comfortable there, I can see into infinity. I know that I'm looking into infinity. I can see further than I could ever see as a human being, but yet I can't see the end of infinity, although I know I'm looking at infinity. And then a portal opens in front of me, a gigantic portal, and it's flowing. It's flowing light, like a river, like a waterfall of light, flowing, flowing, flowing. And it's solid and it's translucent and it's transparent all at the same time. I can see the surface of it, I can see the depth of it, and I can see through it, but not like one at a time, like all at once. And on the inside of this flow was this incredibly long tunnel that went as far as the infinity almost. It just kept going. I couldn't see the end of it. And I felt this compulsion of attraction. And I moved, and it was light. It was like made of light, flowing like pearlescence. You know how when there's some cars have this pearlescence paint on this that they paint them with. They've got sparkles in it. It's sort of sparkly like that, and it flows. And I reach with myself and I touch it. And as I touch it with myself, it inflows into me. It comes into me and expands inside of me. And all of these things happen at once. And I tell this story in sequence, but there's no time. I'm in timelessness. And so it's like everything at once. And all these things happen. I hear my name called, but it's not Peter. It's the essence of the origin of myself. And I see the origin of myself. I see myself as soul, not just in the long expanse of my eternal nature of my soul, but I see the moment of my creation. And I see that I am metaphorically a photon of light made from all of the light and all of the history of all of the universe times a billion. And it's so much bigger than me, but I am of the same. And the voice made me. I am creature in the presence of creator. And it shows me that I am like it, but limited, extremely limited in comparison to it. But I am also made of the same substance. And I can see all these other lives that I had lived, like these little tiny slivers inside this wide expanse of my soul and length of my soul. There's these little tiny like lives that emanate out from me and back into my soul, but I'm not any of them. I am this. So what I am is this being that was called into creation, and it wasn't just like in the past being called into creation. It's constant. I'm constantly being called into creation, and yet I have this eternal nature, everlasting longevity of my soul, and I also know that I'm fully known. I know that there is no part of me, of my soul self, but more particularly of my person, Peter, of my Peter self, was completely revealed. There were no dark shadows. There was every closet was open. There were no under the beds to hide things. Everything was seen and everything was known. And the voice was telling me, I made you, I know you. Nothing is hidden from me. I've always known you. And then I went through hell. And the hell I went through, my own hell, the hell I created for myself, was that why this happened to me and doesn't happen to other people, I have no explanation for. But I went through a hell of my own making, and the hell that I suffered was to experience all of the pain I gave away in my entire life from the interior of the person I gave it to, all of them, all of the pain. So like in this chronological sequence, every single event of my life, I was inside the person I hurt, looking at me hurting them and feeling the pain, and inside myself simultaneously seeing me hurt them and knowing why I wanted to hurt them. And the pain that I gave them, the pain that they experienced. So there's this dichotomy between what I thought I was giving them, the amount of pain I thought I was giving them, versus the pain that they felt, was this huge disproportion. I gave them a teaspoon and they experienced 500,000 gallons. So it was this radically different amount of suffering that I had caused. And the crazy part of it is that all that pain I carried all that pain. All the pain I gave away, it was mine. I owned it. It was me. And so I was getting this juxtaposition, this being shown my life review. And I was judging myself increasingly guilty. I did this. It's just so obvious to me that I did these things. But meanwhile, this voice without sound, which was the entire infinity itself, but also like really personalized next to me, like right with me and inside of me, was saying, without sound, I love you, I made you, you're my creature, I know you, I've always loved you, you are my beloved, I've never not loved you. And simultaneous to all of this, I could see humanity, and I could see all the pain that everyone had caused everyone else, and I could see the structure of the universe, and understanding that I was, as a human being in the matrix, I didn't write the algorithm that created the game. I was just a creature in the game. I was not responsible for the design of myself, or anyone else is responsible. No one else is responsible for the pain that they cause other people, because that's the way the whole system works. And so there was although I was guilty of what I had done, I also understood that I was just a creature. I was just a game piece. And the voice was speaking inside me. I love you. I made you. I've always known you. I forgive you. And when I also carried with me, like because I could hear the voice, all of the love that I'd ever given away in my life, and all of the love that had ever been given to me, was like my ear of my soul. And through the ear of my love that I carried with me, I could hear this voice telling me that I was beloved. And because I could hear it, I began to listen to it. And because I listened to it, I was instantly and utterly forgiven. Like all of the pain I had created in my life just fell away from me. And I like to use Charles Dickens' The Christmas Carol, when Marley comes to Scrooge and he's got these chains. I forged these chains link by link in my life. All of my chains fell away. They were gone. All of my attachments, all of my negative attachments were gone. And because they were gone, and I describe it now, after I didn't use the same language in the book, but now I continue to study and learn. I use the language of a purgative fire of divine love. I was cleansed by this. This was a cleansing for me, and an opening, a removing of all of the things I didn't need. And when they were removed, I was infilled with beauty, love, joy, adoration, bliss, paradise, healing, wholeness, end of suffering, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, peace, joy. And it was all one thing. It wasn't like these were components. They were all oneness. And this oneness filled inside of me and expanded me. So as big as I was as a consciousness, this just made me so much bigger. And it was almost as if any more that would be given to me I would obliterate. I would explode. And even with this immense amount of oneness inside me, it was not infinite, because I was still inside of the infinite as a separate thing. So it's this paradox of being in a state of oneness and still being limited in the unlimited. And I was in this mostly beauty and adoration and love. And then it's sort of, now that I'm in this place, I kind of have my consciousness back again. I'm clean. I know I'm in the presence of God. It's self-evident to me. I use the word God, use the word Allah, use the word, whatever word you want to use, because none of them contain the capacity to explain what this is, except for maybe the word ineffable or the word nothing, because it's no thing that I can tell you. And because I was now sort of comfortable with it, I say telepathically, am I dead? And the voice says, yes, you're dead. And I say, well, I can't go yet. And the voice is saying to me, come home. It's time for you to come home. Welcome home. Come through the tunnel. And I'm like, well, my sister had run away. My family's broken. It's a bad situation at home. It's why I was in Montana. It's why I didn't go home to Boston for spring break, because I wanted to stay away. The pain was too much, but I couldn't. But I said, my parents can't emotionally and psychologically afford to lose another child. It'll destroy my mother and destroy my father, destroy them. My mom was pretty badly broken by this whole thing. It's a long saga that continued on for 50 years. It's a very long thing. And anyway, at this point, it might have been, I don't know how many years into it, 8 years into it, maybe that long. And I said, I can't take a child, another kid. Do I have to stay here? In an instant, I am swept up and carried across the breadth of heaven to the very edge of heaven, where I am now I'm like, and heaven isn't this place. Heaven is the divine self. It's not like the divine self and heaven are like God sits on a throne and owns this land. It's like they are one thing. And yet it can also become sort of reduced and to be personalized with me, and carries me to the edge of heaven, where I'm shown the galaxy, the galaxies and the galaxy, and now it kind of hones right in on Earth, and now I'm looking right at Earth, and it's like a hologram, and I can see 7 billion people on Earth all at once, not like, oh, over there, and oh, over there, or oh, down there, like everybody all at once. My capacity for sensory input was maximized, and I could see everybody, living people. These aren't, they're not, they look like holograms to me, but they are living people, and half the world's asleep and the other half of the world is doing, making babies, and there's wars, and there's, everything that human beings are doing. I can see it, and I can see inside every single person the divine light, like the very photon, the singular photon of light inside of every single person. So the whole thing's illuminated interiorly, but everybody's in darkness. Everybody, the whole planet is covered with a thick, thick, thick veil. Could be like a foam, like a mile thick foam that everybody's walking through, and nobody knows it's there. Nobody sees the light and the love inside themselves or outside in where I am. And the voice says to me, and it's not like words, it's like an impression of information that was infinitely vast. It speaks to me in the whole of creation. All of the galaxies and all of heaven kind of reverberate with, I am love. I have always been love. I always will be love. I am all is well because of my love. Is well, was well, and will be well because of my infinite love. And everybody is beloved, and nobody is lost, and all suffering ends. And because of that, because now you know that the length of a human life is the snap of a finger. That's how much time it takes. That your parents will be here soon. But I could see their faces, and I could see their suffering. I could see their lifelong suffering, and I could see what would be with them if I went back, and what would be with them if I stayed. But the message I was getting was, it's time to come home. Your life is over. They'll be here in a snap of a finger, and their suffering will end, and there's no reason to go back. There's no reason to go back. But I could see their suffering, and I said, well, I was like thinking about how I can go back. I was in a theater company. I was traveling, leaving in 2 weeks or 3 weeks on this national theater tour, college-based, but it was a national tour, 24,000 miles, 64 shows all over the United States. And I was in it, and I was like, well, I made this commitment. And the theater director, Jack, had actually grabbed me by my shirt and shoved me. He's a nice guy. I like Jack a lot. I still like Jack, but he was mad at me that I was going off to this dangerous situation that I might not be able to come back. He's like, you better come back, because there's nobody replaceable in this show. And so I told God that, and God made no response. And I still hadn't gone through the tunnel. And meanwhile, also, I had seen other things too. I had asked to understand the structure of the universe and all of cosmology, and not just quantum physics and the regular, the macro physics, but all biology and geography and astronomy and cellular biology. Everything. I wanted to know everything. All of it was downloaded into me. And I understood the complexity of life. And I said, but I haven't gone through the tunnel yet. Do I still have to go? And the voice said to me, no, I want you to come. This is your time. Your life is over. Come home now. But you want to go back? And I was like, yeah, can I go back? And the voice says, yes, you can go back. I said, if I go back, can I come back to this state of bliss, to this level of understanding, to this level of comprehension, to this presence of you inside me? And the voice said, yes, you can come back here. And I said, well, then I choose to live my life. And the voice said to me, you won't live your life, and sent me back. And on my way back, I sort of began to be compressed. And I took back on, I was pure consciousness. I sort of took back on the sleeve of my spirit, and I was rushed toward a million different openings that were like lives that I could live inside this body. And I saw this, it's like a big, huge circle, and it's a cutoff end of all these a million fiber optic cables with their little tiny lights, and I could see all of the entry points. And in the middle of this big, huge circle of them was the intensity of the white light itself. It was like the laser beam of the divine self, penetrating down into me. But I remember the voice said to me, choose which life you want. And I remember thinking, well, I want to kind of be a creative, bohemian sort of counterculture person, which I was. And I picked a path that was not that intensity of light. I could have chosen that, but I did not choose that. I chose sort of on the outside edges of where the light was still radiating out into, not the darker edges, but it wasn't that particular center point. And the next thing I knew, I was rushed down this call it a tunnel, and I was compressed, and I felt like I was screwed back into my body again, into my heart, like an ice screw, twisted, cracking. And then I was then I was inside of this thing that I didn't know was what it was anymore. And my first experience was suffering. So I was back, and I'd forgotten about suffering. There's no suffering for me. Suffering was over. And now I remember suffering, and I'm in pain. That's the first thing I know is pain. And then my consciousness sort of comes on, my brain comes online. I begin to think, I hear sound, I hear screaming. I feel my body being pulled. Eventually Tim drags me up, pulls me up, and he's yelling and screaming at me. And as I begin to understand language again, which takes me a while to figure out, I didn't really figure it out. It just, my brain sort of came back online, rebooted. And I started hearing him screaming, and he's crying, you were dead. You were dead. If you died, I was going to die. And he was overjoyed that I was alive again. And he was celebrating, and I was completely confused. I was like, what is this thing? And where am I? And why am I here? And why does everything hurt? And how come everything is so crude and ugly and flat and painful? And Tim finally communicated to me the dire situation that we were in, and I got me to pull the rope after some period of time. And on the first pull of the rope, it came free, and we descended. And where this climb is, it's right on the Ice Fields Parkway, right across the street from the Saskatchewan River, between which is a parking lot. So our car is right there. It's like 100 yards out. We hike out to the car, we get our tent, and I convinced Tim the worst thing we can do is heat up our bodies too fast, because that's bad for hypothermia. We have to heat our bodies up slowly. We set up our tent. We start our stove inside our tent because it has a vent and a chimney, so we're not going to get asphyxiated with the CO2. We get inside our sleeping bags. We heat up tea water. We start with warm water. We bring our bodies back up to temperature slowly. And when I think we're warm enough, a couple hours later, we get into the car with the heater on. And then my life was changed forever. I was not the same. And then on the way home, we get arrested. We get put in jail. We bribe our way out. We were speeding some little town, and the Mounties lock us up. We're Americans. We paid what money we had, and then I don't know, 15 minutes south of there, we totaled the car by hitting a semi, head on under the rear wheels, and it's my fault. And we spend the night in a hotel on the floor. The Mounties convinced the hotel owner to let us sleep in the lobby, because I'm a freaking wreck. We're both wrecks. And Tim is really angry at me now because I ruined his car. And we took the little money the next morning. We're out by sunrise. The next morning, I took the little money we had and we pooled it, and I gave it to him, all my money to him. And so he could take a bus back to Bozeman with our skis and our poles, because we had been snow caving the previous week. And I made a little sign. I'd been hitchhiking for 10 years, maybe not that long. Yeah, it might have been that long by that point, maybe 7 years. But I've been hitchhiking for a long time. I made a little sign that said Bozeman, Montana, and I went outside. And the first thing that happened to me that day is I had a stutter. I didn't have a stutter the day before. I had a stutter that day. And it actually took me years to learn to control it. It still comes back sometimes.
Huh.
But what was going on inside of me was that I was in this really beautiful place. It was just really gorgeous sunrise and silos and beautiful snow-covered expanses. And to me, it was ugly. To me, it was crude and dense and rude, and I was disgusted by myself and everything, because it was so much less than. And inside of me, there was this voice still speaking to me, still communicating to me my name, still calling my name, which is unpronounceable. It's not Peter. It's my soul name. It's like the connection of my soul to the divine, always all roaring inside of me. And it's telling me, messenger, speak. But it took all of my words away. You can't speak about the ineffable. So, and I didn't even understood what had happened to me, but I was like given this task, and I was like, I'm not doing that. And so I buttoned my lips for 20 years. But I changed my life completely. I'd been working in construction, college, all the way through college, blue collar, hammering nails and carrying boards and being a laborer for a construction firm, because I was going to be an architect in my family's firm. And so I've been drawing since I was a kid, working through college in construction so that I could be like a liaison and know how to put buildings together from the ground up, literally. And then I was not doing that anymore. Then I was like living in this body as a completely different person. And then 3 weeks later, we leave on this national theater tour. We have a 15-passenger van and a pickup truck and a trailer with all our gear in it. And actually, in March, we had shown in Canada, but that's another story. So this is now, I don't know, might have been April. I guess it was February we were in Canada. But this is April, and I was supposed to drive one of the vehicles, but now I can't drive because I'm a wreck. And instead of sitting in the 15-passenger van with everybody, I brought my winter gear with me, and I sat in the back of the pickup truck by myself for 24,000 miles. I stopped being social. I became hermetic. And I had been meditating since I was a senior in high school. That's a whole nother reason why I started meditation. But I'd been practicing contemplative meditation, it was called then, now centering prayer, and I just dove inside that. And my whole life became about this thing. I didn't become an architect. I went to divinity school. I studied mysticism and got a master's in divinity, got talked into becoming a United Church of Christ minister, hid inside the church for 20 years, spilling light and love out of me, but not telling anybody what was going on. I practiced Kriya Yoga and centering prayer, and continued my scholarly studies. So I continued reading. I read all of the Nag Hammadi texts and the Dead Sea Scrolls. I read everything that I possibly could. I read Lao Tzu and Chuang Tzu and Rumi and the Upanishads. I read everything. I just read and read and read. And I read very deeply into Western mystical literature in order to try to find a peer group who's in the world like me now, and also to find language to think about what happened to me, to give it some sort of context, and thirdly, to find some techniques, because to drive myself back home. How do I'm bereft. One of the things, I was depressed in clinical depression for 10 years because of this. And I was suicidal every frickin' day. I was like, I would practice my meditation, and then I would pray every day, God, take me home today. Can I get out of here today? Can you take me home today? Take me home today. But God had given me this prohibition You did not create yourself. You did not just Peter. Like, I didn't even make my soul self. I could see that my soul was like an outbreath of the divine. I didn't make the fundamental part of me. I can't take that. I'm not allowed to kill myself. I think about it still, and we could talk about all that kind of stuff. But
whatever you're comfortable with, like you're on a roll.
all right, so I dove inside myself. That's really what I did. I learned to dive inside myself. I began to understand. I went to a Catholic high school, so we read a gospel, a boys' Catholic high school, and we read a gospel every year. So I was familiar with Jesus. All right, but when I read the Bible again, it's a very different book for me now. And I should tell everybody, I came back a non-believer. I came back with not just no belief in religion or Jesus or anything else. I came back with no belief in culture or politics or anything that human beings make up in their minds, because it's all a construct. Language is a construct. I didn't believe in any of it anymore at all. I only know that God is, or the divine, the ineffable, is the only real that there is. And I was so bereft and alone, lost from my beloved, that I found techniques, because I read in Jesus, make your eye single and your body will be filled with light. Go into your closet and pray. Where two or three are gathered, I am there. All these mystical statements, I took him at his word, and I took Yogananda and his explanation of Kriya, and Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras explanation of Kriya, and I sort of mashed these all together with the practice of centering prayer, which itself is a mashup of Western mysticism and Theravada Buddhism, and began my own interior journey. And so when I was a congregational minister, I continued diving deep inside myself and told nobody. Not my wife. I told my wife about this the day after our marriage, but I told nobody else, because I didn't want to be considered. I didn't want to lose my job. I didn't want to lose my career. I come from a very intellectual family, and I didn't want to be believers, Christian believers, but not really. And I didn't want to lose things, so I hid it, and eventually, I was the minister at this church in the coast of Maine, and there was this very large embezzlement that lasted decades, that I was involved in trying to reveal what was going on. I didn't know it was an embezzlement, but I knew something was wrong. And I got seriously abused by the church, publicly trying to destroy me personally, professionally, financially. It's in a resort town on the coast of Maine. And eventually we caught the person, and the church apologized to me for the way they treated me. And one Sunday morning, one of the deacons came up and said, I'm speaking on behalf of all the deacons. We want to thank you for putting up with us for all those years, for all the abuse we gave you. How did you do that? You must have had a lot of faith to do that, is what he said to me. And I'm about to climb in the pulpit that Sunday morning. I'm like, well, I say to myself, I guess these people now know who I am, and they trust me, and I trust them, and they love me, and I love them. So it's time to tell them the truth, that I have no faith. And so I stood in the pulpit that morning and I told them, first time publicly, telling my story, cried all the way through it. And from that point on, I was out, because I may not have any faith, but I know God is real. My problem isn't knowing that. My problem is living in the world that is unreal. I live in an unreal place. I live in an illusion all the time. I live like I'm always above myself, seeing through my eyes. I'm always living ahead of the time that I'm in. I'm always feeling other people's inner being. I'm always seeing the divine light inside everything that I see. And because of my practices over all these years, my intentional desire to aim at the oneness of being, to get access to this thing again, has increased this capacity inside me for its presence, and it's allowed me to find some stability in the world. So by turning my back on the world, And by looking at the divine solely in my interior life, it's actually given me a better footing here, which is contradictory, but that's the way it worked for me. So I'm gonna stop right there because I've been talking a while. I gotta get a drink of water here.
Yeah, no, that's good. This is great. I had written down, this would have been writing the whole time, like a bunch of questions, but you answered most of them as we went through. So I'm not even sure if I have any questions left. But I mean, man, I can understand the whole seeing, like living the way that you were living in, and then seeing this bliss of something completely different, and then going back and feel like, I mean, that just took you for a spin. And I can completely understand like how the perspective is on anything, whether, you know, like something like, even if you go for a vacation, you know, you go and you leave for a week and then you come back to your home, you get that same feeling, like, or a similar feeling, I should say, of like, you know, I don't want to change my life and all these other things too. But to actually know what's actually on the other side, I guess the only question I have, like, I guess, what would your advice be to us, others who may have not experienced what you've experienced, but are having a really hard time in this life, not knowing whether or not there is an afterlife, without encouraging suicide, because that, we don't want people to just all of a sudden, you know, skip to the end. How do we endure this life, knowing that, you know, knowing that there's so much better at the end of it? You understand what I'm trying to say? Like, how do we continue this life while we wait for that bliss that you've explained?
Seek that bliss now.
Yeah.
So one of the things I discovered in my reading is that pretty much all of the great mystics, all of the mystical geniuses around the world, always had a singular intent. They weren't trying to manifest a better life. They were always trying to manifest the divine self inside them. That's what they were after. The connection to the divine, the elimination of self, of the false self. And that's a hard process, but for me, that's what's given me stability here. That's what's given me the ability to stay here and endure all the suffering, because life is suffering, right? It is. There are high points too. Things are good. There's beauty. You know, you fall in love and all that stuff. But the dominant theme as a person ages is pain. The older you get, the more pain there is. Physical pain is a representation of emotional pain, of psychological pain. All those things are real, and so, but all of them are the material world. And the focus, everybody, lots of people put their focus on the material world to try to make things better for themselves here. And you know, if you have $1 billion, life is pretty good for you. You can buy lots of things. You can buy health. You can buy stress relief. You can buy lots of things, but you can't fix the problem. You can only band-aid the problem. The problem really is that material world is full of suffering, and we can't change that. And so, how do you endure? How do you endure that? You aim at that which is eternal, that can't be killed, that can't be touched, and that is the reason. My evidence for this in a practical world are the 11 years I spent in this church getting the crap beat out of me as we're trying to figure out what the demon was, speaking in, you know, mythological religious language here, what the demon was in the church that was ruining everything for everybody, the hidden demon. And it turned out to be an embezzler. And we tried to restore him and bring him back into the community anyway. So that's another thing. But what allowed me to endure all of that was aiming at the oneness of being. And that's what all these mystics, all over the Rumi, Meister Eckhart, Teresa of Avila, Hafez, everybody, they're always aiming at the oneness of being. Their singular intent is self-obliteration. And in self-obliteration, you find out that you don't actually go away, you expand. And so in this expansion of the divine self inside you, it doesn't get rid of the suffering, but it makes this very stable platform of courage and strength and determination, fortitude, patience, all these joy, all these things that sound ethereal, but really they're become the strength of a character. Your character changes because now you're accessing the peace that flows. I live in. I had this experience after maybe 10 years ago. I've had other mystical experiences as a result of my near-death experience, and after this one particular experience, like my sacral chakra opened up, and I had a channel of peace flowing through me for 6 months, during the time at which I slid into second base, fractured my ankle, dislocated my ankle, and split my tibia from my fibula, and spent 14 weeks on a bed in major pain with pins and ties. They, what are they called? They drilled through both of my bones and pulled a tie to pull the bones back together, that kind of thing. And in the midst of all of this pain, the peace never stopped. This peace just kept flowing. I'm still in lots of pain. I'm on like all sorts of ibuprofen, but the peace just continued. And when it finally, 6 months later, when it finally closed itself off, I found out a couple years later in my meditative life that if I look at that place, I can open it up again, and the peace just kind of flows through. And so this is what I would advise people: is if you've ever had a mystical experience, and lots of people have, near-death experience is a type of mystical experience. It's not the mystical experience. It's just one of them. Rumi, Hafez, Pantajali, Yogananda, Jesus, Muhammad, mystical experiences, high level, but there are lots of lower level ones too. And I like to use the common experience of the visitation of the dead. So you lose somebody you love and you're in real grief, and then that beloved person comes to visit you in a dream or when you're awake and communicates to you divine love or wellness of being or apology or forgiveness or whatever the message is telepathically. It's always love. And now you shift. That's a mystical experience. You shift from believing in the afterlife or not believing in the afterlife to knowing that your beloved person is alive. You can't touch him, but you know in your heart, you know in your experience that the truth is they're still alive. And so a mystical experience has 4 components. It's transient. It has a beginning and an end. It's passive. It happens to you. You don't make it happen. It's noetic. It leaves you with wisdom in your soul that is ineffable, unspeakable, and that's number 4. And so you go through this transformation. So if you've had a mystical experience of any kind, if you aim your intent at the memory of that experience, the location in your heart, the memory of the love, the chakra where it happened, that becomes a portal for you into heaven. It's a mystical experience like that leaves a mark in your soul that gets expressed in your body. It's first in your soul. And so if you can aim your mind and your breath at this place, you tap into your connective point to the divine. And so long answer, that's the long answer. The short answer is aim your heart at heaven first, and all things will be added unto you. That is Jesus, and it's totally true. And I see somebody asked a question over here.
Lots of questions.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to tackle?
Well, the one that's popping out to me is Scarborough Sasquatch Station. Why did Peter not want to be a messenger of God? Because I had a life planned. What I didn't understand when I chose to come back is that my life was over. I was dead. Okay. This is really the bottom line. I was dead. My life was over. And by coming back, I came back as in a new life. Mm-hmm. I had another job and I didn't want that job. I felt like I got bamboozled. I didn't understand what the deal was. When I was told you wouldn't live your life, I didn't know what that meant. I was like, okay. But it turns out what that meant is that my life was going to be this, what I'm doing now. And all the things I've done from the day that happened until now, I have only, it sounds kind of weird, I have lived only for my beloved. I'm in love with God. I know who that is. I know that I am beloved, and everything about my life has been that. Even if I hid it for all those years, it still was that. But I didn't want to talk about it because I couldn't talk about it. How can you be a messenger when there's no words? You can't talk about what there is no words for. And so I was upset about that. I was upset about the whole thing. And I carried anger. I was angry at God for a long time. I got over it. I lived into it. I don't feel like I mean, I have a choice, but not really anymore. I made my choice. My choice was to come back. And from that point on, everything was different. So that was that question. You get other questions. What do you have other questions over there, Ryan?
Well, I'll just we've got to head to commercial, but what we'll do is I'll go through the comments real quick. That's there. Then we'll hit commercial break, and then we can dive right back into it. So
Great.
I mean, it's more so comments because I think a lot of people are opening up to what you're saying, because like Scarborough had said previously, had a code blue in hospital, did not see heaven, did not see anything except darkness. So
we can talk about that.
Okay, let's go ahead.
So sometimes what happens is that dark space that I first saw, that darkness, you don't go any further than that. That's it. You get to that point, you get drawn back in. So it's like this void. It's like this emptiness. There's all these different levels of near-death experience, and some of them are that. Some of them are a little further out. You're in a car wreck and the paramedic shows up, and they drop the paddles on you, and you've had enough time to pop out of your body and watch them do this, and they paddle you, and now you're back in your body again. And then there's the people who go up the tunnel a little way, and then they get drawn back in again. Then there's the people who go to like some sort of hypercorporeal place with music, with notes you never heard, and colors you've never seen, and tactile that you've never felt before, and they have a divine experience there of the light or an infilling of the divine. And then there are people like me who go to this infinite nothing and have an experience of union. And there's a whole bunch of others. There's a whole bunch of levels to it. And if you only saw the void, that it's okay. I mean, you'll see more. There's more.
Cool. So Chantel had said, I somehow feel like people have near-death experiences just as unique as their consciousness.
I think that's true. I think that the divine compassion of the divine is that always approaching us with a custom-made experience, because we all come back and we all talk about it in the cultural context of our mind, which is usually in the cultural context of our society, and that's really the only mythologies that we have. So in terms of coming back and talking about it, I think that that's true, but I also think that when we go to a level of heaven, you kind of go with what you already know. So in India, people have Kali experiences. For instance, Kali isn't terrible, right? Kali is just death and destruction. And I definitely got destroyed when I died. I mean, my ego was destroyed. My self was destroyed. But I think that what she's saying is true. And I'm not an expert in having read 10,000 near-death experiences, but I've read I have friends. I have lots of friends, and we all tell each other our stories. And we all seem to come away, even if our experiences are different, we all come away with the same message. And that message is love. And if you can't do anything other in your life than love somebody, or love your dog, or be loved by somebody, then that's enough. Because love is the only treasure that lasts. And so whether or not our experiences are different, Jesus says, many mansions, many rooms in my mansion. What does that mean? Lots of dimensions, lots of heavens. But ultimately, there's only one divine Godhead, one union of self that is beyond, it's infinite. It's beyond us. But it is, all things feed back into it. all roads lead to Rome, basically.
Okay. Thank you. All right, last one, and then we'll head into commercial. Priscilla says, I've experienced it. The closest I've gotten to that feeling is through meditation, inner healing, and expressions of unconditional love.
Amen. That's it. Exactly, Priscilla. Hello, sister.
Right on. Hello, Christopher. I don't know if you're just tuning in late, but I said hello to you at the beginning. Thank you for being our newest YouTube member, and welcome to the show this evening. I am going to just read my little thing here. Okay, so we're going to pause right here, but we will continue after a message from our professional partners. Also, if you're listening to this live on the replay, live on KPNL Radio or a future podcast, head over to youtube.com/the Experience Your Support Association to see the video that goes with this audio. Remember that you are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experience Your Support Association, and we will be right back.
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis and was really taken by his research. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada. And just as interesting, he really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence. Note for starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them. If you want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolanmembers.com, where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.
The same thing that draws aliens to our planet is the same thing that draws us to others. Exploration, curiosity, sustainability of life. That's why we go. It would make sense as to why they're visiting here.
Travis! Quit playing around, man. Get back here. Travis!
The last thing I remember was this numbing shock. Stunning sort of a feeling. Very powerful.
Get away from me!
I was just out of my mind with fear, just screaming the whole time.
It's been theorized that aliens prefer remote areas because they don't want to attract attention. Whatever it is that they're doing, they would want to do that in a less populated area. There are multiple accounts of the same thing from people from all over the world. People that do not know each other, do not live in the same cultures, and they're all looking up, they're all seeing things in the sky. So it would be naive of us to think that we're alone in the universe.
My mission is to assist and help those experiencing this phenomenon in such a way that they're able to continue and live with it, and also in a way that it can be measured, quantified, and reinforced within today's society, so that way it can be accepted and no longer viewed in a negative way. One thing that I do value in people is the ability to sense and feel when something is right and when something is wrong. That is a natural ability that we all share. Now, when we combine that with the paranormal and ufological abductions or visits, I have this sensation that these abilities are connected. Not everyone can sense, not everyone can feel. However, those who can are typically connected with something that we cannot explain. And part of my research is not just to investigate the experience, but it's also to understand and study the experiencer, to find out what they have in common with other experiencers, to try to figure out what the actual makeup is in order to be on that spectrum.
There's a lot of it happening all over the world, and I do not know of any other study that is focusing on the individuals as people, only the phenomenon.
Welcome back. You are still listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. If you're enjoying this episode so far, please consider becoming a member of our channel or send us a super chat. Your membership will get you bonus content like exclusive videos, and it will help us reach our goal of launching our training center, Interstellar, the Academy of Ufology and Paranormal Studies. Also, if you have ever experienced an unexplained event involving the paranormal, UFOs, extraterrestrials, dogman, or any other paracryptid, head over to testacan.org/reporting system. And we do investigate near-death experiences. However, we don't market it so much, but maybe we should after this little adventure. Maybe Peter can help me out with that. So the more reports we get, the more we will understand this phenomenon and how it affects our people. Let the others who already reported be that example that proves that we are making a difference. And if it wasn't for these reports, we would not be able to do what we do. And for that, we thank you. All right, Peter, how you doing?
Great. How are you?
Good. So good. So before the show, Peter and I had a quick little chat about what we were going to discuss tonight. And full disclosure, I made the bad thing of assuming that because he was a reverend, that UFOs and paranormal was off the table. I was definitely wrong. So Peter had divulged to me that he had once chased a UFO, and I cut him off at then, and we had the show. So now I would like to know what that was all about, and I'm curious if it's possible, if it's to how that relates to your understanding of the afterlife.
Well, can I start there?
Yeah.
So a few years later, a few years ago, actually, a friend of mine was a I worked in TV for 15 years, and a friend of mine who was a meteorologist, I had this conversation with him, and one day I said to him, I think that physicists are the theologians of the 21st century because they're asking the unadorned questions about the meaning of life without the lens of mythology. And so about 3 weeks later, he called me up and he said, I told my friend Rudy about that, and Rudy would like to meet you. I was like, well, who's Rudy? He says, Rudolf Schild is a professor who works at Harvard in the Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, and he'd like to have a conversation with you about that and your UFO experience, because he thinks that there's a connection between near-death experiencers and UFO experiencers, because in his research, it turns out that he thinks that there's a disproportionate number of NDEers who are also UFO experiencers. But that was news to me. So I went down and had this incredibly great conversation with him, 5 hours in his kitchen over lunch, coffee, and glasses of wine. It was great. But all of it was because of what happened to me in 1977. I was a high school student, my last year of high school, 77, and I took a job out in Perrysburg, Ohio, as a camp counselor. And because I was the camp rifle instructor, I'd been a Boy Scout, I had my merit badge, I could shoot, and I could run a rifle range with safety. So because I ran the rifle range with safety, I was a trusted member of the camp staff. Because I was a trusted member of the camp staff, the head of the camp allowed me to take the camp car, with other counselors to go roller skating. But we didn't go roller skating. We took the car and we went out and we bought Bohemian beer. I can't remember the name of the company. It's a 3.2 beer. That's all you could get in Ohio at the time, with fake IDs. And we had a bunch of cannabis with us. So we take the car, we drive up to this park that's up at the top of, this is Ohio, so it's a flat place. But we're on the Maumee River, and there's like a gorge, and we're on the top of maybe the only hill in all of Perrysburg. And we're up on the top of this hill, and it's dark. And I have my cassette deck. I'm driving, and I pop in like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and I hit the button. And guys in the back seat. There's 3 guys in the back seat, 1 guy in the front seat. Pop open the beers. I'm just about to light the homemade pipe that we made in the wood shop, and suddenly the entire parking lot was completely illuminated. Like I had the pipe and like,
Yeah.
And now it goes from pitch black except for the lighter, and to completely, like, you can see all the trees and everything. And we're like, and I'm like, oh boys, and we're all Catholic. This is a Catholic camp, so we're all Catholic schoolboys from all over the country. And I was like, we're busted, boys. It's the cops. We got to give ourselves up. Let's just get out of the car. So we all get out of the car, and we put the beers down, and we look behind the car, and there's nobody there. And then we're all like, where's the light coming from? And we all look up overhead, and maybe at treetop level, just above treetop level, there is a white disc, and this white disc is humongous. I look at this thing like this, and in order to see the edge of the disc, I have to look way down like this. I have to look way out here. It's the size of half a football field, and it fills the entire sky above us, and it's perfectly silent. Is not, and all the crickets stopped cricketing, and there was no noise at all. Everything is completely silent. This thing over us is completely silent, and it just sits there. And we're like, what is this? And we're like, whoa! And then it just starts to drift away. It just very slowly, like a balloon, only it doesn't go up. It goes down the hill and stays at treetop level. It's like, everybody in the car. So we all get in the car. We drive down this curvy road up this hill. It's the only curvy road in the whole town, I think. We drive down this curvy road, and it's like, everybody throw all the beer out, throw all the weed out, throw all the pipe. We throw everything out of the car because now we're chasing this thing. And I don't want to if we get busted, I don't want anything in the car. So everybody throws all the beer out, and we chase this thing. And so now I'm on a flat, straight road, and it's staying ahead of us less, maybe an eighth of a mile or less, and it's very large, and it's over treetop level, and it's just moving along. And I look down at my speedometer as I go through the middle of camp, because this particular road runs right through the middle of camp, because when it isn't a camp, it's a private Catholic school. So I go blowing right through the middle of the camp, and I look down, it's like 86 miles an hour. I hope nobody's up looking. I go flying right through the middle of camp, and 3 miles beyond the camp or so. So we're following this thing for 5 miles or so. We're just following. We're talking about it. It's like, oh, you think there are a bunch of young guys in there just giving us a hard time? Like they're playing with us. They're toying with us. We're like talking about it. We're hanging out the windows, and we're looking at it. And we're doing 90 miles an hour. And we get to a right angle turn. So there's a right hand turn that goes a bridge. There's a bridge on this road over to the town of Maumee. And it's right ahead of us. Now we're like right behind it. And it made a right angle turn at 90 miles an hour and never decelerated and never arced. It was like going this way, and then it was going that way. And it was no curve. There was no, it just went boom, boom, just like that. And we went blowing right by it. So I slammed on the brakes. And there's a big cornfield next to us. It's like July, so the corn is maybe hip height, if that. And I slam on the brakes, and I spun the wheel, and off the embankment into the cornfield, wiping out this poor farmer's corn, doing this wide swish with the back end of the car, rear wheel drive, lined the car up with that road that we missed, and go up over the embankment and slam down on the road and floor it. And up ahead of us, a half a mile, there it is, waiting at treetop level, just waiting for us. We get right up close to it. And as we get close to it, it becomes just a streak of light. Fast. It was like light stretched. It moved so fast that it looked like the light, a streak of light right up out of the atmosphere and gone. And that was it. But we were like nothing, silent. No visible means of propulsion. Mm-hmm. Right angle turn at high speed. Hyper speed. Could stay perfectly still, and it just in space, just stay there. So then we decided, because we had done all these illegal things, including wiping out the farmer's corn, and so we had to crawl under the car. So now we're parked on the side of the road, and we're pulling out corn stalks from underneath the car. So we pull out all the corn stalks that were stuck under the car, and we made a pact never to talk about it because we didn't want to get in trouble. So I lost touch with these guys. And then when the Pentagon came out 3 years ago, 2018 was it, with the videotapes off of San Diego, I'm like, okay, it's time. And so I made a video, and I put it up my website on my YouTube channel. And a couple of years go by, and I get this phone call from this woman, and she says to me, did you put up a video about this UFO in Perrysburg, Ohio? I'm like, yeah, I did. And she's like, well, I know a couple of guys, and she's very cagey. And it took like 2 phone calls to figure out she knows the 2 guys that were in the car with me, 2 of the guys who I'd lost touch with because I had no, it was a summertime job. So been in touch with those guys. And the 3rd guy just showed up in my life about 3 weeks ago. We haven't had a talk yet. We're still missing one of the guys, but we all remember the same thing.
That's interesting. Any missing time?
No, I have had missing time after my near-death experience, though.
Okay,
but no, I don't think we got picked up by them and taken anywhere. I don't think that happened. But if they did, we don't know. I don't know. If a missing time, I have no idea. But I don't think so.
Well, that's so. The missing time after the near-death experience. Are you referring to the time that you were in that experience?
No, I would go into meditation, and I would like leave for long periods of time, and come back. I just would be in a meditative state without like making it happen, just hours.
Okay, so prior to your near-death experience, so prior to that experience, we'll call that as in like the new you, the old you. What was the old you's belief on the afterlife, faith, religion, UFOs, all this stuff? Like, what did the old you think before your world just got blown apart?
Good idea. Good question. In terms of UFO, I was a Star Trek fan. So I was always fantasizing about space, and I was a big NASA fan. I've been a space fan my whole life. Cosmology, astronomy, looking at the stars, all that stuff. That's been in my wheelhouse forever. But in terms of, I was a natural born mystic. I had my first out of body experience when I was 5, next one at 6, had one in high school, had 2 in college, had another one in college. So I had a relationship with this entity, this angel already. I'd already been pulled out of myself a couple, 3, 4, 5 times, and brought into the presence of the divine. So that was part of my life. And I was raised Roman Catholic and Greek Orthodox, kind of a combination. 2 churches that hate each other, fought wars for centuries, so, and they're next to each other. And I'm kind of a mixed kid between the 2 of them. So I came to the conclusion early on that both of them said that we're right and the other one's wrong. But how could that be true? How can they both be right and the other one wrong? So I was always sort of, and plus with my previous spiritual life, I was always connected to the divine. But that doesn't mean that I was a goody two-shoes, because I was definitely not. I'm ADHD. I was often in trouble. I got bullied as a kid, so I had a lot of fights. So it wasn't like I was living this perfect little life by any measure at all. But I was a spiritual person, that's for sure. But dying, what it blew out of the water was all of my belief systems. None of the mythology worked for me anymore. I saw that it was mythology. I saw that it was all construct, and that none of the language that there existed in my youth or in my adulthood at all contains the capacity to express the presence of the divine that I feel right now, let alone what I felt when I was in heaven.
Yeah. So I find with the mythology was just like their way of trying to explain, the understanding of that side. And when they get into Catholicism, that was them understanding that side and trying to control us from not dabbling into said side.
Well, mysticism's dangerous.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about that.
Well, mysticism is always, all religions are founded by a mystical experience. Muhammad, Jesus, Lao Tzu, you name it. They're all founded by some kind of mystical experience. Joseph Smith, you name it. So, but then what happens is that mysticism abhors institutionalization, and institutions abhor mysticism because mystics don't abide by doctrines or dogmas. When you have the difference between believing and knowing is that when you know, you don't have to believe anymore. There's no more belief system. That's like doesn't exist anymore. And so when you don't have a belief system and you don't have to follow the rules, well, then you become a danger to the power structure. And so the mystics in the Catholic tradition were monastics mostly, and their writings were kept secret from the general population. This book here, where is it? This one. This one here. This was handed down through the Catholic Church, down through the monasteries for centuries, secretly. It was a secret book, but it was in publication by hand, and the author is anonymous because the author didn't want to be known. It is that kind of thing, because mysticism, well, it's hard to control. That's really it. You can't control a population if everybody knows that you're living in an illusion and power doesn't exist. I can't hear you, Ryan. You're muted.
Sorry, my headphones died, so it automatically muted me. So you mentioned Joseph Smith in terms to the negative side too. So what element of Joseph Smith are you referring to? Are you referring to the Mormonism?
No, I'm referring to his mystical experience that birthed Mormonism.
Okay.
Mormonism. We could talk about Mormonism. That's a whole
Well,
other subject.
Joseph Smith is interesting for me because there's that Mormonism side that's on its own. There's that mysticism, because I'm tracking to what's going on, and then there's also the fact that he was a Freemason and he brought that into him through Mormonism as well. So I'm interested in your thoughts around all that, and that would be good for the audience as well. So I'll listen.
Well, I don't have a much knowledge of Joseph Smith in particular. I have a passing knowledge of Mormonism because Mormons talk to me now because their religion seems to line up better with near-death experience than anybody else. The little I know about Joseph Smith is kind of what popular people know. I haven't studied that. I haven't studied Mormonism, so I'm not an expert at all. But what I can say is that he had a mystical experience, and it got written down the way that he understood it. And every mystic always writes in the context of their experience and culture. And so it always gets filtered plus through their character and their knowledge. It's always not exactly what the message is on the inside is what the message is when it comes out.
I can understand that too. Okay, that makes sense. So see, that's the thing is like you have the answers, you know the way that it is. On a scale from 1 to 10, how difficult is it for you to live in a society where it's not that way?
I spent most of my life masked. I lived a lie. So every time I climbed into the church pulpit and I said I believed, I was lying to them, and I pretended I wasn't the way that I am. I didn't talk about it because I didn't want to be. I didn't want people thinking I was wearing a tinfoil hat. Really, you know. And
you're
right.
On,
and you're right. I know. And then my life, the trajectory of my life was that I came out, and then I had this TV show, and I was working in New York, and TV spot, and I was working in New York, and they found out, the people the network I was working with, they found out, I told them like over beers one night, like, and then this thing happened to me. It's like, oh my God, you should write a book about it. I'm like, I'm not writing a book about it. That's crazy. I'll end up, known. And then they said to me, if you write this book, we'll produce your book trailer before you write the book as an incentive. It's like, worth $10,000, the book trailer, something like that. And I was like, really? And they're like, yes, we'll produce your book trailer if you write the book. So they produced a book trailer, and it was out 3 years. Well, it wasn't out. I had it 3 years before the book was published. And then I'm out. And now, I'm sort of living out the truth that I was told to live out in the first place. I was doing that from the pulpit, but I was always disguising it. I was always hiding it in the language. And we did a lot of work with homeless shelters and food pantries and soup kitchens and social work and domestic violence and rape. And I was always deep into the very human areas of real suffering, cancer patients, you name it. I was like right inside of everybody's life, not obnoxiously, but like helping people go through their suffering. And then when this book came out, I died a second time, just as the book was coming out. I had a heart attack, 100% blockage in my widowmaker, killed my grandfather, killed my sister, and would have killed my dad, but they life flighted him and shot him up with a decoagulant and killed me in the ambulance. I live in a rural place. On the long drive to the catheterization lab, I died. And I left my body again, and I went partway up the tunnel. The angel of death came to collect me, my buddy, the angel. We love you. We missed you. It's your time to come home again. And I went. But then I started thinking about my kids and my brand new granddaughter and my daughter who had left this abusive situation and who's going to help them and protect them. And so I stayed. And then the book came out, and then I was on Fox and Friends, and then I was on Coast to Coast, and then, all these things just kept going. And I just kind of embraced it. After my second death, I came to understand I chose twice to come back. And I know that I have a termination point. And because I know I have a termination point, and I'm so far along in my life now, I've done so much work previously, I'm finally embracing being the messenger that I'm supposed to be. And what's the message? The message is love. That's really the message. It's twofold. The message is love, and that everybody's capable of it, and that science is driving a mystical explosion globally. Medical science has been raising the dead for 50 years, 60 years now, through cardiac care primarily. And I just saw, Scarborough Sasquatch, he got the paddles. And that is raising tens of millions of near-death experiencers in the United States alone. Tens of millions of us, 10 to 20 here. And then expand that around the globe. We're everywhere. We're everybody. We're neurosurgeons and janitors. And we all seem to be coming back, and I say seem because I don't know for a fact yet, but we all seem to be coming back with the message of love. And it doesn't matter whether we're Jews or Muslims or Christians or atheists. It's so what's if
Like
everybody's pardon?
a reset almost.
It's a reset. If everybody's coming back with the same message, well then what's that mean? And now, for the first time in the history of the world, there really is a new thing under the sun. Religion has always been based in mysticism, but then it becomes institutionalized and doctrinized and dogmatized. But this is like tens of millions of mystics being made every day, millions a year. And we're all talking about the same thing. So I think that's the second message, is that if there's ever a time in the history of humanity that we need to dissolve the barriers between us, now is the time. And that seems to be happening.
I am liking that there is a choice, especially when some of the times these deaths can't be predicted.
Well, yeah, I had a choice, but it's a rare thing. Yeah. Why I have a choice, that I don't know. But eventually, nobody has a choice. Everybody goes. That's right. It's always a time-limited thing.
Okay, so let's go back into your past, the old you. I'm tracking that you had out-of-body experience. So there's a psychic consciousness connection, because that you would leave your body that way. How did that happen? Like, did you meditate and that would happen, or is that uninvited or invited? Like, how did those things happen?
When I was younger, it was uninvited. When I was a child, 5 and 6 years old, it just happened to me. And then when I was, it's always pretty much uninvited. I'm trying to think of any time that I made that happen, and never once.
Any UFO or paranormal events prior to that at all?
No, I keep scanning the skies. I've only seen one, and I do look up a lot. But I have had a meditation does centering prayer with an intention to aim to polish my inner lens. It makes me more accessible, I could say. And so I have in meditation been raptured into a theophany. But it wasn't because I was meditating. But it might have been because I've been meditating for 40 years. So I've been meditating for 40 years and practicing Kriya Yoga for the same amount of time, always intent upon the I'll put it this way. In Mount Athos in Greece, there's a monastery, and in the monastery, St. Paul's, on a door above the doorway, there's a sign, and it says, "If you die before you die, then when you die, you will not die." And if you die before you die, then when you die, you will not die. And that is the summation of my life. I've been practicing dying, the little death, every day in my meditation for my whole life in order to make myself permeable. I mean, I have a purpose for that. I'm trying to make space inside myself for the divine to be inside of me so that I can survive in this world while I know that I'm not from here. I'm always like Avatar, like the movie. I'm always like knowing I'm inhabiting my body. Sometimes I forget that it's there, but the moment I pay attention, it's back again. It never goes away.
I understand that. So if we were to say that the place that you went when you had your deaths as a location, and then so that was obviously uninvited, but then you were there, this is where all these things had happened, these feelings in this location. When you meditate and you reach that state, is this the same place or is it something different?
Well, I don't reach it by meditation. In my meditation, I reach silence.
Okay.
I reach an emptiness and a silence. And what it does is it makes me permeable. I don't direct myself to leave. But yes and no, to answer your question. It's always the same infinite space, but each experience is entirely different from every other experience. And because each experience is, well, it's in a place of no things, it has a different sort of, it's like being inside a different sort of heaven, because the message is the space. It's not like this, I go into a space and get a message. It's like the message is the space. And so there are sort of different heavens inside of a much larger, similar heaven, same heaven. And it's always like I'm inside of a bubble. I'm always inside of this angel. I'm always inside of this like embrace of this light that carries me into this other place and sort of, I don't want to say protects me, but allows me to be there I couldn't be there without it. And the difference between a near-death experience and an out-of-body experience that I've had is that in a near-death experience, I am not attached to my body anymore. There's no cord back. That's been severed. In an out-of-body experience, every single time, there's always been bilocation going on. I'm always still inside my body and I'm in heaven at the same time. But my point of view is heaven. Looking down, I can look down and see my body, but I'm not inside of it. I'm up here, and not only is like bilocation, I'm not only up here able to look down there, I'm up here able to look at myself up here while I'm on the inside of myself looking out. It's bizarre. But meditation that's aimed at the divine, which is different than mindfulness. Mindfulness is wonderful, but if you aim your entire intention at the divine, it opens the door. And it opens the door, and it keeps opening the door again and again and again and again. And another way to think about it is it thins the veil. And then instead of trying to leave my body, I never try to actively leave myself because I know enough to know that my will is not what I'm trying to follow. I'm trying to follow the divine's will. I'm trying to eliminate my will. And so if I'm projecting out of myself purposefully, I can do that probably. I just haven't ever tried. Lots of people do, but that's not my path. My path is to allow myself to be taken to eliminate myself and be taken by my beloved. I want to meld with my beloved. I want to be in the state of union again. I've touched it while alive since then. I've been inside of it. And my desire for it supersedes everything else.
Okay. So you're well informed of that waiting place between life and death. What do you presume, or perhaps know, happens if you were to accept that death?
Oh, well.
What's next?
I don't know what's next for me. I have some understandings of what my future holds as a soul, but I don't know that I'm going to reincarnate or not. I'd like.
Do you believe in reincarnation? Do you think that's possible?
I saw my other lives, so I don't believe in it. I saw them, and I'm not even sure from this point of view, from here, because when you die and you come back, when you're dead, you have no brain in the way of your understanding. When you come back, you get your little tiny brain again, and now all that knowledge can't fit inside there. Just like it's way too big to get inside the holes, and it just doesn't fit. So there's a lot of things I don't know or remember anymore. But what I do know and remember is that I had lived lots of other lives, but I don't know whether they were on Earth or anywhere else. I have no idea now. Different dimensions for all I know, but not one of them was me. They were always less than me. Me is my soul. And so if I reincarnate again, I spent most of my life praying to die after, take me home, God. And it's like, I was always thinking to myself, I'm never coming back here. This place sucks. I am not coming back to this place. I get another chance. I am not coming back here. But now I've lived a long life now, 62 years. And I'm thinking to myself, it's not that long. I remember that snap of the fingers. If I get sent back again, if my soul evolves as a result of my time here, and I can come back again with some level of light inside of me, knowledge, to then begin to try to share more of that in my next incarnation, then I'm in. If I can be like a bodhisattva, yeah, okay, I can do that. Otherwise, no, I don't want to come back. I'd rather continue on in the evolution of my soul. So it's in other mystical experiences, I saw other aspects of the light and the universe and the way that soul evolves, ever stripping down from its limitations toward unlimitedness, ever falling closer to the unlimited infinite, and layer by layer by layer, the soul becomes more made of purity and less made of impurity, and to phrase it in a certain way. So I know, I've experienced the growth of my soul without my body. And I don't need a body. I don't need a mortal body to continue to evolve closer to the divine self, back into the state of union, where I become obliterated. My goal is the end of myself, my end of my sense of myself. Because inside, when I end inside the capital S self, then I am that capital S self. I no longer need any form of limitedness. And I've touched into that. That has entered into me. I've seen enough of it to know that that's what I want. I want to become reunited in totality with the divine self. And that's my goal. And I experienced the evolution of my soul. I've seen that my soul can evolve without a physical body. Then that's what I want. Whether I get it or not, that's a whole nother story. I don't know about that. Who knows?
No worries. Chantel popped in with a question. Has Peter heard of the Akashic Records? Any experience with it?
I have read about the Akashic Records, and I didn't see any book, but what I saw was the totality of my life and myself. I was fully known. There was nothing about me that was unknown as Peter. Like my whole history of Peterness, everything was known. But not only that, all of the knowledge of all of my other lives was known, and all of the knowledge of myself, soul, consciousness was known. So I didn't go to like the Akashic record room. I just merely saw myself as known from the origin of my creation until now. I tend not to ask myself questions I can't answer. I used to ask myself, why me all the time? Why did you wreck my life when I was younger after my near-death experience? I lost my career. I lost the family business was not going to be what it was going to be. This has been a plan for decades, and all of that was gone. And so I try not to ask, what could have been. I try not to ask Well, what are the Akashic records? Well, it's beyond my experience, so I don't know. What really, really matters to me is what I do know, and what I do know is the divine light itself, and that's where I put my focus. I put my focus on that because there's a practical aspect to that, is that it lives inside of me and it radiates inside my life and outside my life. So I walk around in like a bubble of heaven. And it doesn't stop my suffering or even the suffering of the people around me, but it always brings every choice that I make, good or bad, always leans into the light. And because it always leans into the light, because I focus inside myself on the oneness of being, I get more light. I become more enlightened, not with my own light. And what I'm much more interested in than examining my other lives or what the Akashic records holds about me, because I don't remember all of it. I just know I know that I knew it when I was dead. I'm much more interested in trying to eliminate myself and allow light inside me so I can bring it into the world. Because all that stuff is going to be resolved. All my unknowns, I know that all my unknowns are they're all going to go away the moment that I die. I'm going to know it all again. It's all going to be back. I'm going to have knowledge accessible. I'll have infinite knowledge accessible to me. So I would rather spend my life. I have spent my life aiming at heaven above all things, and then you aim at heaven and you get all things too. You aim at things, that's all you get. So I've been kind of living in this world of putting my mind and my heart and my soul in one thing. So I know that's a long-winded answer to your question about the Akashic records, but basically, no, I don't know much about them other than what I've read. That's it.
No, it's good. I as a fellow person who has ADHD, I understand where you went with that. All right.
I definitely am ADHD. I'm also dyslexic. It's crazy, but that's the way it is.
Okay, I'm just trying to be mindful of time. I have two questions I want to, I guess, left pop in my head. The first one, I guess, is ghosts. So, like specifically ghosts. Have you ever had any experience like that? And if so, post-death or pre-death? I'm just trying to understand. Old you, new you.
Sure. I before I go on, I want to say to Hairless Primate, don't have to buy it. I'm not trying to sell it, so it's totally cool with me. That's fine.
Oh yeah, I totally missed that. What did he say? End of life.
That's fine. Unverified. It's unfalsifiable, and buy none of it. And I don't expect you to.
No, I'm just going to read the comment out because we make a podcast for this afterwards, and they can't see it.
Oh yeah, okay.
So he said, end of life brain chemistry can be tricky, but I've heard many elaborate stories of near-death experience that contradict, Peter vaguely agree, or any dogma-based views of the afterlife, all unfalsifiable and
falsifiable, I think.
Falsifiable, thank you. I buy none of it.
That's okay. I'm not selling it, so that's totally fine with me. But to answer your questions, Ryan, I'm a stilt walker. So as a fun thing that I do, I stilt walk in parades, and mostly locally. And so there's an annual parade upriver. I live in a peninsula upriver at the Pumpkin Fest in this town, and it's a really great parade, and it's a full week of Pumpkin Fest things. And so I'm walking in this parade. Oh, before I get to the parade, it's my first time being there. I don't know where you suit up. So I grab my iPad and I look up, and I'm all gears in the car, and I'm late, and I'm like, where does the Pumpkin Fest parade begin? And the first thing that pops up is a story about the Shriner, who drives the little go-karts and wears the little fezzes. The Shriner, who a couple years before, on the bridge between these two towns, it's a salt river, and a very small bridge with a lot of flow under this very small bridge, who flipped his cart in front of all of the people in the parade and died from a split skull right in front of everybody. Dies on the bridge, like in the middle of the parade. It's a horror scene. And I'm like, oh my God, I read the whole article. It's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But where's the parade begin? So I finally find that where it begins. I go up, I get suited up. I'm in the parade. I'm having the best parade of my life. I'm like, but on the way to the parade, I had to replace 2 bolts in my stilts that hold the whole thing together. And I couldn't get the right gauge bolt. I had to get the next measurement down of the bolt, which was a poor choice. But I was like, parade. So I put these bolts in. I think, oh, it's going to be fine. So I'm having this great parade. The kids are loving me and they're running under my legs, and I'm just as a corn stalk. I'm like, so I'm 9 feet tall and I'm a corn stalk, and it's a great thing. And I get to the bridge, and I'm walking across the bridge on the double yellow line, and there's 2 sidewalks, and the bridge is maybe 30 feet long. It's a very small bridge, but there's a lot of flow under this bridge, a lot of water moving through. And I see 2 of my neighbors sitting on the sidewalk. And I'm moving pretty fast. And I was skilled still walker. I could dance and spin and jump and do all these things. And so I'm moving really fast. I spin on 1 foot. I take this giant step toward them to make it look like I'm going to fall over the bridge into the water, because I'm completely in control of myself. And as I step down in front of them, my stilt breaks. Boom. And I pop out of my body. And I see all these things at once. I see myself go over the bridge. I see from the inside of myself. I'm like outside of myself watching this, and I'm inside of myself seeing through my eyes. I see myself launch over the bridge and into the river. And there's like a huge and a flow of river. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is it. And it's going to be right in the same spot. But as I pop out of my body, I see behind myself this amorphous gray shape that's floating up at my height, and I look at this thing and I was like, that's a person. And the next thing I know, instead of going over the bridge, I had built my stilts in such a way as if one ever broke, I could slide down the stilt. And so instead of all this energy was going, like I was almost running down the hill. I turned, and so I took all my energy, and it was gonna go over the bridge, like over the edge, and instead I go straight to the ground, just straight down, and twist my ankle, and everybody's gasping, and a guy runs up to me, and it turns out to be one of my buddies, and he's like, Peter, you all right? We all thought you were gonna drown, and no, I'm okay. And I pick up my stilts, and I'm embarrassed, and I start to walk up the hill back to the car, and I'm like, George is going to drive me home and drive me to my car, and on the way up the hill, he says to me, yeah, in the moments of this happening, my young protege, he's a lacrosse coach, and he had one of his lacrosse guys with him. And he said, the kid I know, he said, Sam had already stripped off his shirt, and it was already on the railing on the other side, got to go in as George was going in on this side. They were going to go in after me.
Okay.
And they were both super surprised that I went straight down because of all this momentum. So I'm sitting in his car, and here's where I'm getting to the spooky part. I'm sitting in his car, and my phone rings, and it's another near-death experiencer, a woman I'd been counseling because she was suicidal for a year, because near-death experience can really mess you up, and she sees dead people. She's a paramedic and a biology teacher, and she sees dead people, and it was just freaking her out all the time. And so my phone, I hadn't talked to her in a year. And my phone rings, and it's her, and she says, so Peter, what happened? I was like, what are you talking about? She said, there's somebody came to visit. Somebody's here with me now. A dead person's here with me now. And he's saying, I didn't mean it. I was just trying to help. I didn't mean it. And what happened? And I told her the story, and it's this Shriner. And now he's like attached to me, and he sort of hangs out with me for a couple of weeks, and now I can't get rid of him. It's not like I can see him. It's like he's always around me. And so finally I called her back up, and I said, this guy is like not leaving me alone. What do I do? She said, just tell him to go to the light. Just tell him to turn to the light. That's all you have to do. And that's what I did, and that's what happened. So basically he saved me. That's really kind of what happened. I thought he was trying to kill me is what I first thought, but no, he saved me.
That's interesting. So did you know that Shriners are usually 33 degree Freemasons?
I guess I did know that, but it never kind of crosses my thinking. But yes, I did know that.
So knowing what I know about Freemasons and the Masonic Code and the helpful people that they are, I find it very noble to know that even in the afterlife, that Masonic Code, to help another life was there. So I appreciate that story, that event. You have had a life, my friend. 2 of them, many of them, 3 of them.
Yeah, I'm in life 3.0. That's the way. Because I was going to die that other time too, and I mean, stay dead. So
you must have a divine purpose to fulfill on this earth, because otherwise, all these opportunities that could have ended you, should have ended you, or would have ended you. So, if your purpose for being here is helping our audience, I appreciate you being here in this moment right now, and I'm sure as our guests do as well. And we do have a few minutes before we go. After the show ends, there'll be just a 5-minute commercial at the end, but if you want, we can chat at the end. Before you go, I'd like you to tell everybody about your website, what can be found on there. Talk about your books. You have 3 books, or 2 books.
2 published, 1 in the making.
One in the making. What are they about? Where can they find them?
Let's see. This one here.
Let's get into that.
This is an interfaith mystical. It's really a mystical collection of 365 of my 1,700 stories that I wrote for television. Had an audience of 80,000 people a day. They're stories that are inspirational and give people hope. And it's called 2 Minutes for God. And it was a bestseller here in New England. And this book here is an international Audible bestseller. It's published by HarperCollins, Canada, Guideposts, Brilliant Audio, Hampton Roads. It's got like 5 publishers. And it's been purchased for a film. I'm at peterpanagore.love. I run a program on Sunday mornings called, on YouTube, my YouTube channel, called Not Church.
Not Church, yes.
Mysticism, no dogma, no doctrine. It's I deconstruct the Bible, and I continue my mystical studies. We talk about mysticism, teach meditation. But basically, I try to bring, do you know the word Shaktipat? Shaktipat? It's a yoga word that means the transfer of divine energy. Christians call it the laying on of hands. But I try to create a place, a community where mystics from all over the world can bring their little light together to magnify each other, to bring more light into the world. That's what Not Church is all about. But I also do counseling. I counsel mystics, grief, mourning, pastoral care, that kind of stuff at peterpanagore.love. So you can find all that stuff and all of my social media, including my Instagram, which is kind of a personal, professional thing, kind of a mashup of that. peterpanagore.love. And I'd love to hear from you. I'm available. I'm a writer I work as a writer full time. And right now I'm trying to finalize the Act 1 and Act 3 that are going to surround this with these 2 major production companies out in California, so that we can get that movie made. And then I'm going to go back to my 3rd book, which is I've kept my real childhood and adult mystical life a secret, because as kooky as near-death experience was 25 years ago, now that it's out in the open, it's providing an avenue for other people's mystical experiences to be discussed. And I've had a lot of mystical experiences, and so I'm writing all of them down as an effort to put myself forward, so that other people can follow behind me and talk about their stories, which is why I talked about near-death experience. I figured that if I talked about my near-death experience, other people would talk about theirs, and we can normalize this. I'm trying to normalize spirituality. I'm trying to help normalize mysticism. And so my 3rd book is an attempt to help to do that as well, because we all have these experiences. But if you go, people in churches don't even talk about it because it's taboo. If they can't even talk about it in a temple or a synagogue or a mosque. So if you can't talk about it there, where can you talk about it? We have to kind of break the barriers, and I'm trying to break the barriers. That's what the third book is all about.
I appreciate that. Thank you for doing that. That is a noble cause, and I can. That is tough, but you will get it. I'm totally understanding where you're coming from. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. I super appreciate it. And nice to meet you. Thank you, everybody. And peace to you, everybody, especially Hairless Primate. You are a gentleman. I thank you.
Right on. God. No, that's good. That's good. Thank you guys for chatting. This is great. Thank you, members. Christopher Lee, Chantel. You guys are champs. Remember, tomorrow at lunchtime is the lunchtime special with me, yours truly, off the cuff, where we'll talk about everything that's happened in ufology and all that other fun jazz. And I guess that's pretty well it. So, Peter, I'll talk to you after the break. And then everybody have a good night. Thanks for watching. Keep your eyes in the sky, everybody. Heed the world.
This is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, where together, my friends, we own the night. On our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a place called the SOR Sightlines Report. All of our investigations and people who inquire are turned over to TESSA, the Experiencer Support Association. Ryan Stacy and his crew, what I like about them, they're independent. They're not working for anybody, and they want answers. We want answers for our listeners and people who inquire as well about their experiences. It's a great tandem, and we love being teamed up with TESSA. If you haven't heard of us before, that's okay. We'd love to earn your listening ears. Join us 9:06 Pacific Time, 12:06 a.m. Eastern for 3 hours of live entertainment, 7 days a week.
Please stand by for further details. We return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
Hello, new YouTube member. Guess what? You've just unlocked bonus content that no one else has seen before, and you get exclusive access to some neat features. If you join the Experiencers Anonymous tier, you've unlocked loyalty badges which will appear next to your name when you join us live during any of our videos. The longer you stay with us, the cooler the badge will be. Also, you get to use these cool custom emojis that we made just for you. You also get to access our private Discord chat where we can communicate all the time privately. All you have to do is email us at admin@tessacan.org. Let us know you want in on the discussion and we will send you the link directly to Discord. This tier also unlocks early access to new videos, behind the scenes and blooper footage, as well as some exclusive videos made just for members. All that for $2.99 Canadian a month. If you join the unclassified tier for $4.99 Canadian, you would get everything I just said, plus extended footage of some of our featured videos, a discount to our merch store, and so much more. If you are a member of the unclassified tier, email us at admin@tessacan.org and let us know, and we will send you a discount code for the Paranormal Hangar. All proceeds go back into the mission and help us create educational content for you and the rest of the world. Thank you for being a part of that journey. There are lots of perks, so make sure you check that out. Also, you can use this tab to share and communicate with Tessa. That's it. Unless you have a better idea. If you do, email us at admin@tessacan.org if you have any requests for videos or bonus perks or anything at all. Really, you are in charge. Don't be afraid to reach out. That's it. Thanks for your support. And if you know anyone else who may benefit, please share our channel. The more people we have, the more we can help. And thanks for watching. Keep your eyes in the sky. Say it with me. Say it, Tim.
Heed the world.
Heed the world.